Hi, Jackie and Scott. I see you guys on here, but we don't have things up and running in the auditorium yet. So I'll probably ask if you can hear us in a few minutes.
You sounded perfect right then, Tammy.
Hey, what's up? Hey, you can talk for a couple of minutes.
Me?
Yes, I am.
Hi.
Hi. Can you like recite the Gettysburg Address or something?
No, I cannot. I can almost tell you what the subjective and objective pronouns are, though, because I'm helping my 7th grade grandson. But I didn't do very well on the test.
Okay.
Kevin's here, he'll talk. Yes, it is. Oh, come on. I just confessed.
I am hearing her through my speaker here, so that tells me that we're in the system. Is Mr. Baxter or Mrs. Martelli is online. Can you give us an indication of what you're hearing?
I can hear all of you fine.
Thank you very much.
You said you heard everything?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm talking, make sure the live stream.
Okay. I have muted the table mics until we get started.
You guys got say something?
Mr. Baxter, if you can hear me, would you unmute your mic and speak, please?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
We're testing to see what's coming through the going through to the live stream.
Is it picking it up?
I'm hearing him in my speaker, so I'm assuming that it is.
Hi, Scott.
Hey, how you?
Good.
Yeah, I'm hearing everybody very good tonight. Better than normal, actually.
Me too.
It's like all the noise that was going on, we could pick that stuff up, when I was
Right.
walking around and people are.
We're testing to see what's coming through the Oh, that's. They're down now.
It's
It's backstage next to the podium on a stand. Guest mics are going live.
We do have a flag that's.
Okay. Oh, go ahead. Which we do.
Which we do. Okay. But it was it's something we haven't really talked about.
Yes,
Okay.
we're going to tonight.
You knew all that.
Yep. We're gonna.
Copy.
Yep. All right. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll take the roll. Dr. Corporal?
here.
Scott Baxter?
Here.
Heidi Dilsaver?
she is unable to make it tonight.
Okay. Abby Green?
Here.
Lacey Bronson?
Here.
On board?
Here.
And Brandon Halting is here. We have four.
Thank you, Brandon. Okay. The addenda, I would like someone to make a motion. Kevin would like to provide us a first read of bylaw 100 for remote voting.
I make a motion to add that item to the agenda.
Thank you, Abby.
I'll second.
that. Sorry, Brandon.
No, go ahead. You go ahead.
I second that.
Thank you, Alicia.
Okay, public comments first.
I think that's next, Kevin. right?
Oh, okay. So go ahead and share out the,
Or would we put that under presentations and discussions?
because then it becomes a part of the presentation.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, so as long as that motion is approved, then we can put that down. So 2.01, comments from the public.
Okay, we have several for this evening. Kevin Ralston, you online? I see one phone number. I'm not sure who that is. Kevin Ralston? Okay. Chris Vogel.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, school board members. I wanted to thank you for letting me speak this evening. I apologize for not being there in person, but I am in Coldwater tonight trying to support our boys varsity soccer team. We're on a rain delay right now. But I just wanted to say that I have 3 children who all attend Pennfield High School. They all are sophomores this year. All 3 are great students, but have struggled as individuals over the last 7 months. They've had to face circumstances most of us have never, or hopefully we have never, or we never have, or will have to. Life as they know it has been put on hold, and my question as a mother is, will they ever recover? And I hope that they do, and that they will be all that they want to be. There are many reasons our kids need to be back in school. Most of them have all been touched on over the last 7 months, those being all related to mental, physical, emotional, and academic reasons. Earlier today, I had an excerpt of an email shared with me, and I just briefly wanted to read a portion of that. And this was something that was sent out to parents of Lakeview students. That portion I wanted to share was, it says, and this is a quote all within that email, it says, "The goal has always been to get students back in the school buildings when it is safe to do so. In August, we had very little information and very little medical guidance. So the decision was made to stay virtual and evaluate to see if we can return for the second trimester. At this time, the Calhoun County Public Health Department recommends that we return to in-person learning with required safety precautions in place for the second trimester. This is based upon the lack of COVID spread in schools that have already returned to in-person instruction. And in Lakeview, their elementary schools will be returning, or they're proposing for them to return 5 days in person, and then middle school and high school will be a hybrid approach. In my opinion, that's the end of the email, but this is now me speaking. In my opinion, it is time. It's past time for our kids to go back to school. And I would like the board to consider giving the Panther families the option to have our students attend in-person classes. Then, in my opinion, it truly will be a great day to be a Panther. So therefore, I really sincerely hope that the board is moving in this direction for our students. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hang on, we're gonna get our mic going here. Okay, so our next person is, she sent an email and asked that it be read. So I will read that to you.
Hey, Tammy, this is Becky.
Uh-huh.
I can go ahead. I'm going to paraphrase that for brevity's sake, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, board. This is Becky Knopfsinger, and thank you, Tammy. As we know, technology is playing a really big role in school this year, and I've adjusted to online work as well. And to echo, yes, we do need to be in a hybrid situation, in my opinion, as a parent of 3 children at Pennfield. But for the online portion, I realized this weekend that my adjustment to working from home has been vastly different from my children's. Like my children, I have multiple work tasks, meetings, and deadlines throughout the week. But unlike my children, I only have one email, one boss, and one cohesive technology platform that everyone in my organization uses. This technology helps me focus on work and focus on that work rather than spending my time getting organized. My two high schoolers have 2 to 3 schools that they belong to between Pennfield, the Math and Science Center, and KCC. They have 3 email accounts, 7 different teachers, and each of these teachers schedules time in Google Classroom or Zoom and also has a separate instructional planner document. And it floored me that my one student has 11 different places to go to figure out what her expectations are. And she's spending she checks these places 3 different times a day to write them down in her planner and is extremely diligent, but still things are getting missed because it is untenable to expect anybody to go to that many different places to figure out what they're supposed to do. And we have the technology at our fingertips. I know that the tech department and Mrs. McGinnity have been really kind of promoting this. And I think it's time for the administration and the board to please require and ask teachers to schedule every single assignment, whether that's a test or homework or a reading preparation, to schedule those things in Google Classroom. And that will not only make the students more successful, but it will make the teachers more successful, and it will lighten their load as well. Because if they have one place to put everything, it automatically goes to their Google Calendar and without doing anything else. And the kids have one place to look for everything. I cannot stress the amount of anxiety this induces in the children that are really trying hard to do a good job. My students spend upwards of an hour just getting organized every day. So that is my request today, and also to include in that any kind of policy for online work to consider due dates as well. Because when us old timers back in the olden days used to have homework or tests due, it was during class when we were in the physical presence of our teachers, and we didn't even have to think about it. We just knew it was due that day. Well, now assignments are due any time of the day, midnight, 11, 3, weekends, Sundays. It's all over the map when these assignments are due, and it just is adding to the mental load and the anxiety of our students of trying to figure out what's due when. So I hope that this board and that the administration can streamline the communication to the students and put everything in one place with the technology we are already using. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to take my mask off to read this for you. On my gardening boot for you. All right, so this was an email sent from a community member. Okay, here we go. Thank you for inviting me to the board session. I'm sending an email instead of attending live. This is in regards to students returning to school, either full-time or part-time. My 14-year-old granddaughter lives with me, and we both take care of my 99-year-old father. I realize that everyone's situations are different, but our situation is crucial in following the strict guidelines that have been set before us. My granddaughter would be in 9th grade this year and has adapted to virtual learning with no problem whatsoever. Although my granddaughter has been completely isolated from her friends since school ended in March, she completely understands the seriousness of the COVID-19 virus and does not want to chance the contraction and spread to the rest of her senior family. Due to the blessing of technology, she has not felt isolated from her friends and other family members that we can't be around all the time. It has been brought up at previous board meetings that many students are not doing well with the virtual teaching. I'm aware that many of those same students were not doing well while school was in session. It would be nice if the combination of teachers and counselors could step in to provide extra help for those students needing it. The positive cases of COVID-19 are rising rapidly in our county. We will not be able to lessen the danger of the virus unless we can start taking this dangerous disease seriously. At the last board meeting, one of the board members remarked that she would not want to be or feel responsible in any way if any child, parent, grandparent, or sibling died from the virus because of school resuming at this time. Another board member responded to that by saying, sometimes we have to weigh the benefits and risks involved. I strongly believe, and I'm sure I'm speaking for the majority of people, that the risk of even one person dying from COVID-19 due to school reopening is not worth the benefit of in-school learning at this time. This is not a decision that any of you have the right to make in regards to our health, our safety, and our lives. Thank you for listening, and I pray that everyone stays safe. And this is from Penny Paris.
Did you say Paris?
Paris.
Thank you.
Penny, P as in Paul. Penny Paris. Kevin Ralston, are you online yet? Okay, Jeff Blake. And we have somebody in the audience that would like to talk, Jenny McCleary. So you want to come on up to the microphone here and you can address the board? You sure can. I'll get 6 feet away.
So my name's Jenny McCleary. I have 2 sons who are in high school. One's a junior, one's a senior.
Can you put the mic a little closer to your mouth? Just so we can get that up.
We are a school of choice family and have been since they started school in kindergarten. We've been very happy with our experience with Pennfield. I'm the Athletic Boosters president and the co-treasurer for the Pub 2021 group that's coming up. And I work full-time as a nurse practitioner. I'm here tonight because I have school concerns with how this school year is going. As a healthcare provider, I know COVID is scary. 7 months ago, we were all very scared about working with COVID. I've worked with over 200 COVID positive patients, and we are leaps and bounds ahead of where we were 7 months ago when school shut down. There are new treatment plans for people. The viruses have mutated, so now it's transmitting easier, but it's less virulent, which means less deadly in most cases. Yes, there are people who are going to get it and have detrimental effects, but I think there are options for us getting kids back to school because I think there are more risks with our kids sitting at home by themselves on the computer all the time. I think there are safe ways that we can get the kids back to school where they're comfortable, where the teachers are comfortable, where the parents are comfortable. I think Brandon was absolutely great last week at the special board meeting when he said that teachers are essential workers. I think there is no more essential job in this world than teachers who are teaching our children to be the future leaders. So there are concerns, we've talked about, like, if there's risk. There is a risk factor for, yes, getting COVID if you're here. There's also the risk that you're going to get flu, that you're going to get hepatitis, that you're going to get lice, that you're going to get whooping cough. There are all kinds of things that we risk every day just going out in public. So yes, COVID is the flavor of the month. A couple years ago, it was Ebola. Kids were petrified to go to school because Ebola was all over the news. So you got to kind of weigh that into the mix of things, what the media is forcing on us all the time. But I'm concerned. There are kids in 6th grade whose parents work in factories who are gone 12 plus hours a day. These kids are getting up. They have to get themselves breakfast. They have to be online for school. They're cooking for themselves. Who knows what kind of hazards they have at home that they're there by themselves. That being said, so we've got issues with kids being isolated at home, doing things that they wouldn't normally be doing for themselves. One concern I have is I've got kids in high school. They have classes with their teachers twice a week. I don't understand why they're not meeting with these teachers every day. They need office hours, after one day that they do office hours, but I don't understand why there's not face-to-face interaction with those teachers every day. Because when they're at school, they're seeing those teachers, they're picking up little cues like, oh, hey, there's an assignment due, I got a test tomorrow, this and that. Whether the teacher is actively telling them that, they're getting that information when they're in the classroom. At the beginning of the year, Mr. Faber said that all the assignments would go through Moodle. My kids aren't experiencing that. They've got assignments on Google Classroom, on Moodle, on MathSpace, on Khan Academy, on Platform. Every assignment is, they have to turn it in this way. They have to send an email to the teacher this way. So some of the things are getting missed just because things are on different platforms. Another concern I have is we've got some teachers who meet with the class consistently for 5 minutes. Say, okay, well, the assignment was posted. If you got any questions, let me know. And then the kids are done. And another teacher that has the kids sign in 10 minutes before the end of their class. And that's every day through 7 weeks, every time. So those things I have concerns about. Normally, when they're in school, they're doing their schoolwork there. If they have questions, they can ask. Some of the teachers are doing outstanding. I have to give props to Mr. Podolin. He's fantastic. He's staying on top of everything. He emails parents if there's concerns. I think he's using Google Classroom for reminders. A couple of the teachers use the Remind app, but out of 12 teachers, I think we've got 3 that use it for my kids. So utilizing those tools, if we have to stay in this online format, would be beneficial. But school isn't just about learning. It's getting the kids up, giving them structure. You know, going to school is more than, hey, I've got to learn algebra. It's, hey, I got to get up, I got to get dressed, I got to get out of the house, I got to get to school on time, I've got to get to that class. When I'm done with that class, hey, I got to go to the bathroom and get to that class on time. They learn accountability for their timing and actions. And yes, there's socialization there. So those things kids are missing out on.
So Ms. McClary, if you could, we usually take about 3 minutes, so I know you're getting there.
I know.
Thank you.
Okay, so my last thing is our internet service is pretty sketchy at our house. So if they get kicked off the internet, then they have to remember to go back. And that doesn't always happen. So they've been missing assignments, and then they get frustrated because they weren't getting, you know, their late assignments, their E's, and they're like, well, I'm gonna fail, so why even do anything now? And I did talk to Mr. Hutchin today, and he said that they're gonna do something with that. So there's hope for that. But I guess I'm just really hoping that you can figure out a way to get the kids back in school. If not 100%, at least hybrid. Have the option for kids to be online if their parents are not comfortable with them being back in school. You can do it safely. And honestly, we've got the option, because we're school of choice, of going back in person in Bellevue. I absolutely don't want to do that, but my kids are to the point, if it's all online, they are ready to switch at their last years. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, Ruth Austin, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
So I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. So I was at the football game on Friday night. My oldest son is in the band. And a few things that I noticed that I want to commend to Mr. Steele. He did a really good job of monitoring. He did his best job of monitoring people, of making sure they were wearing their masks. One thing I did notice is that there was a student on the football team who was not eligible to play, so he was on the sideline, and Mr. Steele had to tell that student 3 times to put his mask on, and a coach walked past him 4 times and never told him to put his mask on. So to me, that is an issue. Social distancing for our students is going to be a problem, which I get. It is going to be a problem. My son was guilty. He was guilty when he came up in the stands to sit with his friends when he took a little break from the band. He was guilty of it, and we had a conversation about it. So those are things that we need to think about. What are going to be the procedures that are going to be in place when students come back to school in the high school and they're transferring classes? We have a lot of teachers out there that are doing an excellent job. Mr. Boyd works with my son multiple times a week at night. I'm talking 8, 9 o'clock at night. He gets on Zoom calls with him to help him with his homework. I don't know how many other teachers are doing that, but we have a lot of teachers that are going above and beyond what they need to do on their contractual obligations. And sometimes we have people who are talking, we have board members who aren't realizing that these teachers are working much harder than you think they are. We have teachers who are working their full-time job, their coaching job, and then getting on at night with kids to help them with their work. So please acknowledge the hard work that they are doing. Also, we have a lot of kids that are failing. That was something you guys talked about last year. Not last year, I'm sorry, last week. We have an assignment policy at the high school that I don't know if you guys understand or realize the purpose of it. And I want to know too, what's the why of our homework policy? Is it to penalize our students or is it to help our students? I'm an educator myself in another district, and I can't imagine having to track down 150 assignments every week from my students. And I would never ask our teachers to do that, but to say 1 day late, you only get 50% credit, and then 2 days late is no credit. We need to be setting our kids up for the real world. And I know that doing this is not the real world. Because how many of you guys have missed a deadline? Did you lose your job? Did your employer dock your pay 50% or give you no pay for it? No, they didn't. This is an unobtainable goal for them. The minute they get no credit for them, you're automatically setting them up and telling them that it's okay to fail. And it shouldn't be okay to fail. So our assignment log that we have that the teachers are supposed to fill out is not filled out appropriately. It's not filled out correctly every week by the teachers like it's supposed to be. It's a hard thing I can imagine for the teachers to have to keep up with. We're always going to have students that are going to lack the motivation, the support, or the willingness to seek help from others. And it's up to us to build, and the teachers to build that school relationship. But for the rest of our kids that are new to high school or new to these high school routines, and especially this online thing, we need to work with them and not penalize them. And I think telling them that 2 days and you get nothing because you don't turn an assignment in is telling them that there's no time and it's unacceptable to be imperfect. The other thing I want to ask is, when we go back to school, have we thought about our sub shortage? There's a sub shortage countywide. What happens when you have 5 teachers out? What are you going to do with those kids? What about the cleaning protocol?
If you could, if you start bringing it to end there after 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
You finish your last thought. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just, okay, all I was going to say is subs and cleaning. Who's going to be responsible for cleaning the rooms every class the kids change? If you guys are talking about the secondary kids going back to school and changing classrooms, what's that going to look like? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do not see the other 2 people that are online, so I think we're good. We can check back with them at the end.
Hey, Tammy, I did just let a mic on. So there was a person that just got admitted, just to let you know.
I don't have a mic, so Mike, maybe.
No, that's my middle name, but I did sign on if it's okay to speak with you guys. This is actually, my name is Jeff.
Oh, Jeff. Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
I appreciate the school board's time tonight, and I'd like to also thank the other parents for getting on, and I'd like to first off support what the school district's trying to accomplish here. But it is time for our kids to go back to school. It's time for the school board, the superintendent, the people that are going to make the decisions. It's time to get our kids back in school. I teach college, for example, and a lot of the stuff we do online, my college students struggle with. So the stuff that my daughters are dealing with, as well as other parents' children, it's getting to the point where normalcy needs to come back to it. And whatever decision, are made about cleaning or how we're going to do this or how we're going to do that, the time's come. and we can see that students are failing. We can see all the trouble that even that I'm having with my children and their classes. It's just time for the school board to please get our kids back in school, get our kids back to some normalcy. I appreciate your guys' efforts and time tonight and everybody else's comments. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Kevin, we need to have a vote for the bylaw, the addenda, to add that.
Yeah,
We already did.
I think we did a roll call.
We did a roll call, and then we never voted on that actual bylaw.
Oh.
And I was reminded that by our esteemed colleague Jacqueline Martell.
Which is
Well, this will
only,
be a first.
which is only to add it, not that it's being read, just to add it to the agenda.
Correct.
What was that? And I made a motion on.
There was a motion to add.
You did, and then we never voted. So you're right. You made the motion, and we moved right on.
Well, I thought it was to add it to the addenda under 3.0, like after public.
That's correct.
Correct.
Okay.
So with that motion then on the table, I'll take a vote. You want to
So-
restate it?
I just want to clarify here.
Yes.
So as far as I understand, this is the one I'm voting. And this is the first reading or second reading?
It's the first reading, and I believe the question is, which I believe you're going to help us with,
Yeah.
is that just adding it to the agenda only needs to be a roll call, but not an actual vote. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not until we actually go into an approval of some type that a vote is taken.
Correct.
Okay.
So I think you got it on the agenda, so when it comes to the reading of the policy, then.
Okay.
But I also am not sure we can vote on it tonight, because you have to wait till the second reading.
Correct.
Thank you. You know that.
Yes.
It's okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Ed.
So you had it right the first time.
Okay. All right.
So.
Sure.
Okay, so this is the first reading, and it is based on policy, it's based on the bylaw 100, and it's under voting. And the first reading is to change the actual bylaw to read in this order. A vote at a meeting of the Board of Education, except to accommodate the absence of any member of the board due to military duty, board members must physically be present to have their vote officially recorded in the board minutes, unless the board president has notified the board unless the board member has notified the board president prior to the meeting that he or she must participate remotely, and the board president approves remote participation of that board member. So that's the change, and it's bylaw 100. So that's the first reading. I will bring it back at the October 19th as a for approval for that change
On the consent agenda.
on the consent agenda.
And then it will be in effect for that meeting.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Thank you, Abby.
Yeah. I like that. Anyway, I like that policy the way through.
Yes.
I do.
Oh, we took it directly from the Neola
Yeah.
representative, so yes.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, we'll be moving forward then with 3.01.
Yes, back in February, we had mentioned the curriculum alignment for our district when it comes from kindergarten through the 12th grade. And so Mr. Mueller, Jared Mueller is here. He's going to present here about 5 or 10 minutes and allow for some question time with the alignment. And I will just share before he comes on board that his title as curriculum director has changed to Director of Educator Excellence because we have given the autonomy to the actual building principals to take on the instructional leadership for each building. However, he's going to be able to share with you what was put in place before we got to the change. Mr. Mueller, Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. Hopefully you can all hear me in that big old room you're sitting in right now. So I wanted to take a few moments to discuss the transition we're in with curriculum here at Pennfield Schools. It'll feel like a bit of a history lesson, but in the end, you'll see how we've transitioned from a centralized decision-making to more of a site-based decision with the principals taking on that lead. So over the past 3 to 5 years, we've created a structure and big picture of alignment for the district in math, reading, social studies, and science. And I'm going to present that in a graphic form here in just a second, but I just wanted to tell you that the intent of those meetings and putting that together was to create a framework. So it wasn't meant to create a day-to-day lesson planning necessarily, but really to create a framework that lead teachers and department heads and principals could then run with the ball and put it together. So that's, as you look at that, that's the lens to take a look at this with. And at the end, I'll share with you what my role is returning to. It's the same role that Dr. Kimball hired me for in 2007. So it's nice to be able to go back to that leadership role that's at more of the 5,000 foot range there. So, Tammy, I'm going to share my screen and hopefully it'll show for you folks. How we doing?
Got it.
Perfect. So I'm going to go through these quickly without explaining what each one of these are. If you'd like to see them, know that they don't look the same as when we first put them in place. And that's because some really great teachers and administrators. I couldn't hear you at all. Sorry.
Go ahead, Jerry. That was someone else who has their phone on.
Oh, okay. So this graphic is meant to be very simple, but what's behind each one of these columns is very complex. So let's talk about math a little bit. With K-5, we began a redesign project and used open education resources. That was also an embracing of materials we already had. And what we're finding out is that some of those resources we put in place are good. Some are no longer available, and so we constantly have to take a look and modify these. One of the things that came out of that project is that we are a lead district in the state of Michigan with OERs. Between Tammy and Cresta's leadership and the involvement that we've had with the ISD with Melinda Waffle, and also at the state level with Gina Lovelace, who have all come to present in our winter professional development series. We have these aligned K-12 by Common Core outcome, and a great flexibility has been helpful as we've been online these last 7 months. Language arts, we are aligned with what are called the MESA writing units, and MESA it stands for the Michigan Association of Intermediate School Administrators. And as I tell people I work with and show off our work that we've done, MESA received more money than I even knew was printed in order to make a viable K-12 curriculum in all areas. If you want to learn Chinese, there's a free curriculum for that. If you want to learn, advanced trigonometry and calculus and applied to outer space studies, you can find a curriculum for that. It's pretty elaborate. The writing units for K 2 and also for 6-12, those writing units have a lot of the work of Lucy Calkins in them. And you'll notice that 3rd through 5th grade use the Lucy Calkins writing units, which are similar. And the reason for that is a couple of principals ago, there was an opportunity for grant money to pay for the units and also to pay for a multi-year coach. And that was exciting. So we took advantage of that, and we were able to keep our alignment, but get some help into the building for both implementation and monitoring for our leaders. Science and social studies are really going through changes. Unfortunately for social studies, it happened right when COVID hit its strongest in March. We were supposed to have that first big rollout of training. So we switched to the science, next generation science standards a couple of years ago, and that actually went through the State Board of Education without much controversy at all, but it took a long time to get in place. So our Math Science Center kits that maybe did not give us the results we wanted years ago are now realigned, and they're going through an auditing process with those to get teacher input and making some modifications. And we've had some teachers that have been very vocal and helpful in giving feedback to the Math Science Center. Also, the Math Science Center has offered late summer and mid and late fall training for implementing the math science kits or the science kits in a virtual environment. So they've really stepped up to the plate with that. Finally, social studies. We are K-12 with social studies being MESA units also, but we also have the luxury of having the Michigan Book Project, which is an online book. Anybody in the world can get to this. We could share this out. Parents could have their textbooks on their phone. They could have it on their Kindle, wherever they'd like to keep it, and they would be able to see the same textbooks that many of our teachers are using as a resource. Every curricular area that we teach in social studies has an online textbook available to it on the Michigan Book Project. And it's these were built with not just educators, but also with key social groups throughout the state. So it was exciting. In addition to the Math Science Center kits, our high school's been working with Mary Lindau as a professional trainer in this area to help move our lessons to a more inquiry-based approach that NGSS is known for. And Mary's worked with them, I think, 3 times, and we have plenty of science funding to be able to invite her back once we're able to do so. So that's exciting. So I'm changing my notes here for just a moment. So my role now is to be the advisor to those principals, to be the advisor and continued support to the lead teachers and department heads as they reflect back on what's working and what's not, and to help look at what's out there material-wise that we may be able to tap into. What are other districts using? And my membership on ICC helps with that. I'm now a member and have been for 13 years of the political action or policy action committee with the Next Generation Science Standards and that group at the Math Science Center. So we have input around that table to help get the needs of our teachers up into the forefront. I'm on a couple of state committees. The one that I'm probably most involved with is the Open Michigan, which is the Open Educational Resources Committee. We meet about 4 times a year, and the idea is to get free, transparent resources into the hands of educators that we can use to teach with, but parents can also access them and where they might be located. So we're learning about the licensing and what that takes. And frankly, we've got, a couple of experts that have been, preaching to the choir on open education resources with Tammy and Cresta. I've used them to teach at the college level, and at both a master's level and an undergrad level. And I will tell you, 5 years ago, I wasn't as excited as I am now because now they look like a traditional textbook. They look like a graphically represented resource that kids will enjoy working with. They're colorful, they're interactive, and the kids can control them. They can zoom into a map. They can write comments onto classical literature and have a discussion. So the other hat I wear is to be that advisor from Pennfield to our ISD and what kind of professional development and training we may need based on the work of the principals and their teams back at the building level. And we have a great relationship with the ISD, and I would expect to continue to do so. So this is the stage. This is the foundation that was set for the principals and the building teams to take over and to be able to run with the ball with this and to know that there's somebody in support that understands the foundation that they're working with. So I'm going to pause and see if there's any questions or comments or input.
Thank you, Jerry. Much appreciated what you've been doing in terms of being engaged with the larger community, and I'm looking forward to great results in the future.
Yeah, was that you, Dr. Corpola?
Yes.
Okay. We still have some weather up here where I'm at, and everything sounds like robots right now to me. Sorry. I'm looking forward to finally getting some science data back from the state of Michigan. We've had none in 4 years, but we do have some pretty good stuff coming out of NWEA. And I think the new Math Science Center kids eventually will give us some good information, I hope. It depends what they do with the assessments. So Math Space, I did not talk about, and I apologize to the middle school and high school teachers out there. Math Space is an online program that allows the teacher to differentiate the course and the path. If I had my son in a Math Space class, what he might hear is, okay, today we're going to work on your individual pathways. I've posted your pathways to your Moodle site. So I'm going to hang out and you tell me what questions you might have, and they can engage with a teacher in a box. They can engage with their peers. It's really an interactive resource. So I forgot that, and I didn't want to leave that one out.
Thanks again.
So Jerry, we appreciate the fact that you are sharing the alignment and that we do have a very, very strong administrative team that have come on board and working together. And I know you've had numerous meetings with them. So that work, we realize, is the beginning of something great for our kids and for our district. And I encourage you to continue the good work, but I do not want to take over without leaving time for questions with any members.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
And I want to thank Tammy for not putting my big head on that screen, because as I'm looking at it, that would have been horrific for everyone. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. So next we have 3.02, technology. And we are fortunate that Ms. Tammy is here in the building with us for her presentation.
Elvis has not left the building.
Not
She's here.
Thank you.
Yeah, don't ask me to sing either. I'm not really ready, prepared. Well, so good evening. Welcome. I'm glad that I could be here today. I'm welcoming myself, evidently. Glad I could be here today and talk to you guys. Kind of strange to be here in the auditorium doing it, but I think it's working pretty well. I'm going to share my screen. Can you change so that they just see my PowerPoint up there, Chuck? Thank you. I'll present on the Meet, but then they're going to also see on the screen. You're going to be able to read this, let me tell you. Okay. So first off, I was told I had 15 minutes, so I'm going to use my technology wisely, and I have a 15-minute timer. And I'm going to start that baby right now because I can talk for a long time and not realize that I've talked. So I also have some notes there as well. So for those in the audience, I'm Tammy McGinnity. I'm the Director of Technology for Pennfield Schools. I've been here for a long time, I can't, 16 or 17 years, and I came in as the Instructional Tech Coordinator and then worked up to the Director of Technology. Prior to that, I was a middle school teacher in Comstock School, so I taught science and math, and so I still have my Twitch from the middle school. So I have a little bit of experience in all the different areas. I was asked to talk about two things today to you all, and that is one, an overview of the tech team, kind of talking about responsibilities, staff roles, and budget spending, and also to talk about technology's role in teaching and learning. I'm not really quite sure why that thing's right in the middle of everything, but oh. So here's our team first, and they're all going to love me for capturing these pictures of them. As I said, I'm the Director of Technology, and in my team I have, and this is a wonderful team, I have an Instructional Tech Coordinator, her name is Cresta Wright. I have a Network Administrator, that's Andy Dixon, a District Technician, Jeff Bridges, and another District Technician, Auditorium, and he's half-time because he also teaches band, and there he is up in the auditorium now, and that's Chuck Dixon. So this is my team. We have a very unique technology team because we have a very unique experience. A lot of times when you go to schools, the team of technology will be more from the business IT end of things. You have a team that's very strong in education. That's our first and our biggest passion is education. As I was saying, I was a classroom teacher. Cress has been a classroom teacher. Chuck is currently a classroom teacher. Between all of us, we have probably 35 plus years in just the classroom alone, not including our administrative and other things that we're doing. That is very unusual for a tech team. You also have experience in post-secondary. In me, I've done Michigan State University, go green, and done master's level, work in educational technology, so I've been at that level as well. You have not one, but two national winners of a national award called Making It Happen through the ISTE, which is the International Society of Tech Ed, and that's myself and Cresta. I've been on the McCall board. McCall is a nonprofit organization that focuses on educational technology and how we can support and help that to be a stronger presence in our classrooms and used wisely. You have Google certified trainers, administrators. You have a current board member. Andy Dixon is actually a current board member over at Bellevue. You have a current classroom teacher who's up there in the thing, and he is very good about telling me what is or is not working. He seems to think he has a direct line to me. I don't know. And then we also have this young guy that rides around on a skateboard, and I love the youth aspect. But even though he's young, he already worked in school districts and has that experience under his belt. So this is a very unique team. So kind of looking at what each team member does, Cresta focuses on the instructional end of things, hence the name, Instructional Tech Coordinator. I was her position for 9 years, so I'm very familiar with it. She does all things like in professional development, and there's different ways of professional development. We're talking regular PD dates that we have, but we're also talking before, during, and after school. We're talking one-on-one with teachers, small groups. She goes to their meetings and works with them if they're asked. And then the just-in-time learning, where she'll go right into the classroom and do things right with the teacher and the kids. She's been on meets, doing them online with them as well. So she is definitely there to support our teaching and learning process. She's also in charge of a lot of key services that we work on, our Panther portal, which is our Moodle server, but our Panther portal. And I want to say, the idea behind the Panther portal is that is our, she likes to call this our Amazon of learning. That's where you start. We want all kids and everybody that when they open up that Chromebook, we even have that tab open up. That's the first thing that opens up. They log in and they should be able to go to whichever class, and everything should be in that portal. Now that doesn't mean that the link isn't going to take them somewhere else, because we do. We have a lot of people that use Google Classroom. Our younger classrooms are using Seesaw because it's more appropriate with the younger kids. We have some people that are using different things, but that's why we wanted to have a common jumping point, because there are so many different resources out there. I think sometimes we try to do people favors and give them direct links to things, and then it's a little more confusing. But if you go to that teachers, all that stuff should be there. And I'm gonna definitely work with our administrators and make sure that we're getting that message out. That might help our kids and our parents for sure. She's working with Illuminate. Illuminate is our data warehouse. She works with PowerSchool, Google, Discovery Educator Network. And when I say works with, that's training, but it's also like account management, making sure that kids have accounts, teachers have accounts, and that's working correctly. I'm gonna hide this little thing here. There we go. And she also does research on best practices for instruction and learning, and she researches programs that are going to support, really in general, anything that we do in teaching and learning. Andy Dixon, he's our network administrator. He's our hardware guy. He is in charge of all the network infrastructure. That would be cabling, switches, etc. He's in charge of servers, our licensing, because if you can't just buy a piece of equipment, they also want you to buy licenses along with them. They've got to keep getting that money out of you, kind of like a driver's license. It's like, no, you can't just buy the car. Now you got to give us that license money every year too. So he's in charge of that. Our Wi-Fi system. He is our PowerSchool administrator, which is our data services port. Phone services, account creation and maintenance for oodles and oodles of programs. Also security with our doors and cameras, and data transfers to things like Illuminate and the portal, and even our Willard library. We send uploads to them twice a year to make sure our kids are all in there so they can have library cards. I mean, it's a huge list of people that we interact with that data, and he's the one that does that. Jeff, he's our young guy. We love this guy. He's awesome. He came to us in January. He is diagnosing and repairing 2,000 plus student devices, 200 plus staff devices, as well as the classroom technology and maintenance on all of these as well. So we are keeping him hopping, especially this year with our remote learning. We seem to even have more of an issue going on there. And then Chuck he supports Jeff in that aspect, but he also does some of the other things with classroom technology. He's our auditorium manager, and he is a current band instructor. So that's kind of a real quick overload. Forgot me. I'm the one that has to make sure all of that happens. How's that? As well as talk about budget and spending, making sure our help desk is being managed and taken into account, our website, our media presence, that all gets under my, that's under my wings, and making sure all that stuff happens. We are not a silo team. It's not like I can go to Andy and he's only one working on PowerSchool. I work on PowerSchool. Cresta does things in PowerSchool. So we have to work together as a team on all of these, but we certainly have a lead person on each of the projects, but we are all jumping in constantly to help each other. For example, Chromebook distribution and collection, which is probably one of the most obvious things that you see us doing, but we all do that. We had one person in every building helping with that procedure. That's not normally Cresta's job, but she's going to jump in and do that in the situation. Student testing, when that comes in, I mean, all of these things that you see, they have every aspect of our jobs. There's PD involved, there's maintenance, there's equipment, there's licensing, there's account creation and maintenance. All of that stuff has to happen on anything that you see. So we work together as a team. So where does our money come from? Well, obviously general fund. That's a biggie. And then E-rate. E-rate has been our friend. In the last 6 years, we have purchased a little over $400,000 worth of equipment. And when I say equipment, I mean Wi-Fi services, servers, networking, cabling, and we only have had to pay 20% of that. So by jumping through those hoops, we get a lot, and then we're only accountable for that 20%. And for those people who in the community, if you ever see USF funds on your bills, that's what that money goes towards, is it goes to this E-rate program that then helps our schools to buy equipment that we need to keep things running. Also, there's legislative money. Like, for example, right now there's one called GEAR, Governor's Emergency Education Relief, that was earmarked for technology and helping with remote instruction. TRIG was one that was a few years back where when we were going to online testing, the government gave money to help schools get to the point where they could do that. We used a lot of that money to get to get faster down the road in our one-to-one program than anticipated. Right now there's some money in PA 690 that is federal money for COVID and technology. And they're still fighting about how to get it out to us, so I'm keeping my ear to the ground very closely so I can find out when that money becomes available and that we can use it. We've used title money for PD. We've sent many people to McCall, a conference that takes place both in Grand Rapids and Detroit every other year. It's focused on educational technology. And we have bond money in the past, but that's been a while, obviously. So where does all that money go? Well, it goes fast, let me tell you. Infrastructure alone. For example, 6 years ago, we bought a brand new server with that E-rate money. That's about the life of a server. So I just had to get a quote for a new server. That's about $30,000 just for a server to make sure that, because if that goes down, we're in a world of hurt. Pretty much everything goes down if that goes down. So they have high price tags. So infrastructure like servers, Wi-Fi, cabling. We had a lightning strike at Purdy that took out a bunch of our cabling. And boy, I tell you what, it's funny, Jeff, our technician, Jeff, was in the building when that lightning struck, and he said he'd never heard so many people scream in his life. He heard all the teachers like, because it was like pretty much a direct hit, and it took out a lot of our systems. So we have to maintain things like that. A lot of people don't realize security is part of us, that we deal with the door systems here, all the cameras that are on in our buildings. We're in charge of replacing those and maintaining those, making sure the software is up to date, training people on using them, all the different kinds of equipment. You know, we see what's in our hands the most, that's the most obvious, you know, that staff and kids have things. But there's so many other things out there that you may not notice as much. For example, monitors in hallways at buildings that are doing announcements, signs out in front of the high school. Now we're getting a quote to get that replaced because we're having that start to fail. PA systems that we've had to deal with at Dunlap and here. So there are some things that aren't as obvious that still seem to come to us and that we have to take care of. And then of course there's software and resources. For example, the alert calling system that sends out calls to everybody, that's something that we purchase and then we again maintain and make sure that it's working. Adobe licensing for all of our classes in high school and such. Google licensing, we have to have a license for every Google Chromebook and user. We maintain that. Software updates for operating systems, phones, you name it. We do that as well. And speaking of phones, we do both our hardline and our mobile phones that we're in charge of that. So lots and lots of areas where our money goes. Power Up Learning is just one little portion of what we do, and this specifically refers to our one-to-one program. We didn't want to call it Pennfield one-to-one program. We wanted to make sure that it had a name that showed that we believe the technology is the tool and that really it's about learning. That's why we named it Power Up Learning. So when you talk about Power Up Learning, that's what we're talking about, every student having a Chromebook and being able to access the online things. It started in 2007 when this building opened with our 9th graders, and we built it from 07 till, I think it was in 2012 or 13 when I finally was truly one-to-one all the way through. And like I said, we used some of that TRIG money to speed that up a little bit. Until COVID hit, it was scaffolded, where our computers were in the classroom K-5, and in the middle school, they'd pick up one in the morning, carry that around with them all day, and then leave it in the charger at night. And they got that same one back in 7th grade and that same one back in 8th grade. So they're starting to learn how to take care of it, and the fact that if they don't, they're gonna keep seeing that same one. And then finally, when they get to high school, they would have that a new one in 9th grade. They would have it 24/7, and that would be theirs for 4 years. Now, of course, with COVID, everybody's taking everything home right now. So it's definitely turned the apple cart up on that one. We have tried lots of different ways, but we do all our repairs in-house. We buy parts. That includes for laptops, Chromebooks, and we do that on site so that, if a parent says, I've got a cracked screen, and they put a help desk in, we make an appointment, they come up, they can wait for 10 minutes, and we're going to hand it back to them. You're not going to get that kind of service from anywhere else. So we wanted to make sure we got that back into people's hands quickly, because we don't want to have them without that. So we do that in-house. And then we have a replacement rotation so that in 6th grade, they get a new one and have that for 3 years. 9th grade, they get a new one, they have that for 4. And then every year, kindergarten through 5th, I replace another grade of the classroom ones to keep that, so we're constantly cycling those. So the other thing you wanted me to talk about quickly was the teaching and learning and how we played a role in that. And obviously we provide and maintain the equipment for teaching and learning, that's obvious. Distribution, installation, that kind of thing. But what you may not know is we work very closely with our administrators, both Jerry and the principals, with curriculum. We want to make sure that the things that we're doing, that number one, it's going to work with the equipment we have, and number two, that it's going to be effective. No, Jerry, don't say anything right now. I hear you online laughing right now because I'm out of time. But I'm close.
Really, really loud. I'm laughing.
Oh, I knew it. I knew he would unmute himself. Anyway, I wasn't timing you, by the way. All right. So we want to make sure that those are quality resources and that they're reliable, and we do a lot of research into that. And then once something is bought, that's when a lot of times we really come into play, because now all of a sudden there has to be accounts created for every student and password, make sure those get out, make sure that the teachers know how to ask and get to all the things, and make sure that it's maintained and works. And then there's also the testing aspect of it. Everything is going to online testing, even before COVID. So we're very involved in MSTEP, WIDA, the PSATs, Illuminate. We do a lot of our classroom testing on that, and WEA, and that's all done in conjunction with us because it's all done online. And then, of course, we have training and support for staff, students, and parents, especially now with COVID. I've worked with more parents this year than ever, which is it's a good thing, actually. I've kind of enjoyed it. Unless they're yelling at me. No, I'm just kidding. They're all very nice when they come to talk to me. Usually. Okay, oh, sorry. So technology is ingrained in our DNA. It's part of everything that we do. It's not like we can say, well, gee, what would happen if we didn't have technology? I mean, that's not even a realistic thing to say. We can't anymore. There's no way that you can do teaching and learning and not have technology. It's just not going to happen. Not going to give them effective education. So it's just ingrained in everything that we do. And of course, with the onset of the COVID and remote learning, I could probably drop the mic, because without that, we'd have a really tough time. And even though I know that people are struggling with online learning, I can tell you that I've seen a lot of progress. Where we were a month ago versus now, it's like day and night in terms of people starting to get it and starting to understand it and starting to be able to work, because it is very different. You cannot just take what you do in a classroom and then fit that onto online learning. Those are two totally different animals, and trying to treat them the same way is impossible to make it effective. And we're expecting a lot of our staff, and I'm very proud of our staff and what they've done in a very relative short amount of time, trying to take what they do in a classroom and put it into that online setting. That is no easy task. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. But we're working on it. So with that, not too bad, Jerry. I thank you. Any questions?
That too. So we heard a couple of parents talking about the alignment of technology that might help the students. So the one that I'm interested to know about is the common place to keep assignments. And I understand what you're talking about, Panther Portal, and that makes sense to me that there's a common place to go to get to their site. But have you, and this might be a common question, have you been talking about a common place to for the kids to go to get their assignment?
Well, that really is it. Like, most of the buildings have what they call a WIP, which is a weekly instructional plan. That should be at the top of every teacher's portal. When you go in, that's the first thing that should be in there. And that's the grid that says, on Monday, here's what we're doing. On Tuesday, here's what we're doing. On Wednesday, here's what we're doing. And then anything they need for that should also be in that portal. So if they use Google Classroom, there's a link that takes them there. The information for using Meet is in there.
So what is it that they use Remind for?
Remind is a program that parents and students can sign up for, where they can get texts and emails about different things going on. And our K-5 are all using that. So, I mean, well, let me say it this way. We've asked that they all use that one. And I know that administrators are working with teachers to make sure that we're getting that consistency going. There used to be a couple other programs that were being used at the same time, and we said, let's just use the one, Remind, for that purpose. The other problem is that with technology, there's no way to have one kind of communication. I mean, Remind is nice because that's going to get people cell phones, mobile text, that kind of thing. We also have the alert calling system that does that as well, that we use quite a bit. And then we're trying to stick with that for that type of communication. We have, a district website. We have the district.
So remind isn't really used to like remind them of due dates or.
Oh yeah, a teacher can send something out and say, hey parents, just, and students, remember there's a quiz next week on Tuesday.
But that's up to the teacher, correct? It's not automated to remind
No,
us.
the teacher has to send that out. They're the ones that go in and they send those things out. And then the parents are able to subscribe to that, and they can either get it via email or via text, or they can go to the Remind app itself and put the app right on your phone and get it right in there. So that's one way of communicating that they try to.
Sorry, I'm just trying to.
No, you're good.
So what I'm trying to understand though is I've used Remind, so I know it's easy, it's good to use. Is that they remind the kids that way when they have exams, or do they also put it on Google Calendar? Or so if a teacher has a test coming up,
right.
What is the protocol, and is it the same?
It's going to be in several places, and that's good news and bad news. I mean, if someone's trying to get to them a different way, you're going to run yourself crazy if you try to go to every single way. But if I'm in a Google Classroom, for example, if I'm a teacher that uses Google Classroom, and I think just about all of our teachers use that are third grade up, probably, third, fourth grade up. Below that, they're using Seesaw, which is a little different. But in Google itself, when they make assignments, it puts it on the calendar, it sends out reminders. Parents can ask for an email that will tell them updates of what's happening in the class. As well as PowerSchool, they can do that. As well, they can sign up for weekly emails that tell them how they're doing in terms of grades in PowerSchool. That's what I mean by there's different ways to get it. And we just need to make sure that we're being a little more clear about clear with our community, but also clear with our teachers that we're trying to be consistent. Becky Nossinger brought up a really good point that I want to bring up with our administrators is that, when you put an assignment in, for example, in Google Classroom, there's the default setting of time that's probably midnight, 11:59. So if you don't change that, it's going to be 11:59. So then some people that do change it, they're going to say, well, it's due by the end of what would normally be class, or someone else might be using the end of the day. So we need to, things like that are what we need to shore up and be more consistent
Yeah, it would
on.
be really cool to have, I think it would be nice for everyone to have homework is due at the same time every day for everybody for the whole district. Like 10 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock at night, whenever it is, and not vary. That would take, it seems like a really easy way to reduce anxiety.
And I think, I really appreciate her feedback because there's a lot of things there that I think, that's why I'm saying we can talk with the administrators and just say, hey, let's make a couple of executive decisions here and make sure that we're all, all of our teachers are following this for that reason, to be consistent.
Right.
So
or just to help a kid not have to go to 11 places to every day, twice a day to make sure they're not missing something.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But and that's true of anything in life. I mean, think about how you get your communication. You probably go to lots of different places. Look at she's like,
no, I got it all on my phone.
Well, but your phone has several apps. I mean, you might have a calendar, you might have text messaging, you have phone calls and voicemail. I mean, I'm talking like that kind of thing to that brand. I do use my phone quite a bit, you're right. But it's still the same program. Like I use Google Calendar on any device that I'm on. I can get that in my phone or my computer.
I think unlike for those of us, I mean, we all have pretty much one boss. So and one employer. Right. And so it is more consistent than a child that has that many different teachers if the teachers aren't all using. And also Becky Nossinger brought up a really good point too, because her kids really have more than one employer. Because for the average kid it's Pennfield. We're your employer. There are students, our workers, whatever you want to say. But she has them in Math and Science Center. She has them in KCC. Those are totally different institutions. Right. So really, those kids have, some different places. Like our email is never going to be a part of CACC's email. It's just, you can't do that. It's a different thing. But we can try to be consistent in our area so that when they're under our umbrella that we have that consistency. And I think that's the places where we can get better. Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Anything else?
Thank you,
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy. And Jerry, the work that you and Tammy and Cresta, that team, y'all are doing great work, but again, it's still a work in progress, and we are constantly trying to do better. Constantly trying to do better. So let me mention this before I
Can you change the,
go to the MDE. The student activities on your agenda, where it says student activities, that was my just giving the opportunity to mention the fact that the athletics as one, and the band, the choir, and the extracurricular activities, that we are still engaged in looking at other districts and seeing what opportunities they're offering. I would say that the district that I mentioned last week, Wednesday, because of the band, that I need to start looking somewhere else because they have started posting a lot of what's not working, not what is working. So much so that parents have kind of came out to make some comments about what they're doing and that's not feasible. So I have to start looking at different districts.
Well, you're crossing stuff off the list.
Yes, I got to cross that one off the list and move on to another district that I can look and say, here's some examples of what's working and how we can try to move that into Pennfield. The last piece I was going to share about student activities was the athletics piece. It changed so quickly, and it is a constant change. But the last change was allowing more spectators at an event. And football was the first day, which was that night, which was homecoming. Just so that everybody knows, the reason we didn't have enough tickets was we were trying to get band, dance, we're trying to give the kids the opportunity, even though we would have loved to have had all the parents, but we didn't have enough seating to allow for that to occur. So I just thought I'd share that if it changes again, which I expect it to change again, maybe the next time instead of 20%, it's going to be 40%. Then we can allow even more. But that thinking was one that the administrative team and we had to come with some decisions about the tickets, and it was give the kids the opportunity. It was only one chance for that football opportunity. So we're still working on, we still got volleyball, we still have soccer that's taking place. And who knows, football continues the way it's going. There could be an opportunity to have a first round at home. Just saying, just saying.
I appreciate and support giving at least our senior kids a chance to get tickets. I think that's so important for them this year. So I appreciate you doing that.
As much as possible.
Yes. And I understand that the board has the option for tickets.
Yes, yes.
So I just turn mine into.
Absolutely. And we appreciate that. I mean, yeah. If it's not like they have to just sit there because those are a couple of tickets for kids, then yes, we do appreciate the board members that said their tickets, please give them too. Okay. Yes. So that's the student activities piece.
Can I say something?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
I just want to really thank the Wolfersburg for volunteering their time and equipment to provide our community and beyond the live feeds of those sports teams. That really is a gift. Thank you very much.
Second that. Thank you.
Thank you also to Mr. Wolfenberg and that volunteering piece, and the fact that there is a opportunities for, we do have winter season, even though we haven't ended the fall yet. We still have the winter and the spring, and that the athletic boosters will get back with them again to add to what has already been done to try to help support that. So very good point when it comes to student activities, which will come up on the list again before we get to the winter. The last piece is I want to go back to last Wednesday, and I mentioned about the building secondary, building principals. It's one thing that I'm trying to talk about exactly what's occurring with our failures at the middle school and the high school. Of course, they were paying attention to that, and they were actually there watching the meeting last Wednesday. And so I had a chance to speak with them, and they were already on it. They are here tonight for another 5 or 10 minutes just to share out some thoughts and conversations they've had with some teachers about what changes and what we're trying to do to make things better, and exactly why are we in the situation that we're in when it comes to the failure rates. So I'm going to start with Ms. Bruce, and I know Mr. Faber's there. I know they've been working as a team with all the elementary principals and secondary. I don't know if you are going to go first there, Ms. Bruce. Awesome. Please go ahead.
Good evening, President Fortin and members of the school board. Thank you for having us this evening. Our goal today is just to talk through some of the things that we're doing at our schools to help students be successful. And we just want to give you a little overview of that and allow you to ask questions if you have them. So I'm just going to talk just for a couple of minutes. For our format for instruction, all of our teachers do use Panther Portal. They do have some varying instructional strategies and tools that they use beyond that, but every teacher posts their weekly grid that Ms. McGinnity was talking about in the Panther Portal, and it gives a layout of all the things that they do throughout the week. This is also posted on our website so that parents have access to that so that they can see it as well. There are some other tools that are used. Google Classroom is another tool that is used, but Panther Portal is the first stop for all of our kids. That's where they go and get their information and identify what they need to do for the week. In addition to that, our staff has been hard at work with some professional learning. Right now we're focusing, we meet every week as a whole group, and our focus is on social emotional learning and then prioritizing and adjusting instruction to be fitting for a remote setting. And in addition to that, our teachers also meet themselves in grade level groups to discuss students that are doing really well, students that are struggling and need additional supports, and to try to vet out what those supports might look like for individual students. In our building, we have a Pride Time, which is a class that all of our students have. It's kind of like a homeroom class or advisory class, and we use this class as a case management system. So our Pride Time teachers are actually the primary contact for the families for their Pride Time students. If their Pride Time students are struggling with grades, if they're getting below a 63%, so that's our threshold in our building before they're failing a class. If they're getting a 63% or lower in any of their classes, then the Pride Time teacher does contact the parent and also works with the student to try to make sure that they're accessing teacher office hours and getting the additional support that they may need. And then the Pride Time teachers continue that contact with the parents. And they also contact parents quarterly just to check in. So it's not necessarily a, hey, your student is not doing well or is close to failure, but just to check in. Right now we have conferences going on, so that check-in is happening there too. We have an academic support team in our building, and that is our administrators, myself and Mr. Widener, support staff, and our building counselors. We meet every week. We review the academic data of all of the students in the whole building. We have a whole spreadsheet that tracks grades every single week of every single student. We look at how they're doing. We identify if they need additional supports. And some of those supports are, they might be having one-to-one meetings with teachers virtually. They might have small group study sessions weekly or a couple times a week with some of our support staff. So we have that additional layer set up and some students allocated to those small groups. We have social emotional learning groups with our school counselors. We do have an on-site therapist from Summit Point, and she does see a caseload of students, and they do come on site for those services. And we also do bring some students on site for just to help. With some students, it's just about helping them get organized and walk through everything with them so they feel a little bit more confident with the self-management that comes with remote learning. I tend to think that it's not about the work, it's about the self-management that we're requiring our young people to take on. And we're trying to teach them that and help them learn that. And so some of our kids just need to come in and sit side by side with myself or Miss Carol or one of their teachers and get that management support. And we have been providing that for students as needed. We've had students that are coming in to receive academic supports in a variety of different ways. We've even had some band kids come in that needed some one-on-one support for a couple of different reasons, just to help them get their feet grounded and be able to do some of the work on their own and then remotely. So that's really what we're doing to provide supports for students. This is data that we are entrenched in all the time. We're always looking at it, reviewing it, looking at our interventions and analyzing the interventions to see if they're working or not. And we do have a number of different communication platforms that we use in the building. We do use Remind in our building. Our teachers use that to communicate with parents. We have our weekly grids that are posted on our website. I mentioned the quarterly calls from our Pride Time teachers to check in. I do weekly announcement videos for the students, and I email those out every Monday, which has been a lot of fun. I get a lot of interesting emails back from the kids, which I like. And then anytime I put something out for a specific event, like for conferences or a specific message that goes out, I do use email for that. But in addition to that, I send a text and use Facebook too to let parents know, hey, check your email. If you didn't get an email, please call our office, and so that we can get them set up with that. And then, of course, our quarterly newsletters. So what questions, members of the board, do you have about the things that we're doing at the middle school?
This is Abby.
Hi, Abby.
Hi. So can you talk to us a little bit about, you talked a lot about the supports that you've put into place to support the kids for social emotional learning or for their self-management. Can you tell me, like, when you started, are there any that you've added recently, and have you been able to see an improvement in the effectiveness?
So we really started, that's a great question. Thank you for that. So we really started looking more deeply at this. September 14th was our first data pull. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to wait for a couple of weeks for things to get situated, for students to get used to the routine of things for a couple of weeks and then start analyzing that data. So our first data pull was the week of the 14th. And yeah, we've done a variety of different things, like bringing students in, for example. We've ramped that up a little bit in terms of being able to support them on site. That is an individual basis type of thing. We really drill it down to the student and say, okay, we've tried this, we've done the one-on-one meets. We really need to bring this student in and sit side by side with them for a couple of hours and go through some things and get them organized for the week or for a couple weeks and then check back in with them. So we've really been using, whatever the student needs at that time. We really dig into that individual student and see what could be helpful for them. We've started up some new study groups. Miss Corlock and Miss Wise are both support staff that work in our building, and they've started up study groups. And so they have small groups that are outside of the class time, outside of the school time. Actually, they occur right after school, so at 2:30 to 3:15, and those are done virtually. They've been fairly effective for some kids. The kids that they're not working for, then we've said, okay, this small group isn't working for them. Let's talk about what we can do next.
Just one follow-up. So for those kids that are receiving the extra supports or being brought into the building, are those mainly identified by the staff or by the parents or by the student?
They're really identified by that team that I talked about, the school counselors and myself, Mr. Widener, and our support staff that meet every week to look at how students are doing. And then I meet separately with our school counselors if there are some more serious mental health needs with some of our kids that we know about, that we've been in contact with families that are already engaged with our on-site therapist from Summit Point. So we kind of talk about those kids a little bit differently than the academic needs and identify what they might need from there. So it's really identified more in that group. And then we have a system put into place where if teachers have identified maybe a social emotional need of a student, they're maybe not really sure, or they've heard or seen something that is alarming to them, we have a system set up for them to communicate that information to myself and our school counselors. And then we kind of take it from there. And I mean, we include the teacher in the process, but to help identify what additional needs outside of the classroom the child might have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. The importance that I feel like is lacking right now for our students is their social and emotional well-being. And some of the things last year that our students missed out on, I just wonder if we're putting some of these things into place. And whether we are or not, it's just something I would like our administration and superintendent to think about, is things such as National Honor Society recognition, awards assemblies, pep rallies, dances, 8th grade graduation, some of those things that, you know, you can't get back the next year. And so if you surpass that time, it's of no return to gain that experience and memory back for our students. As we know, they're missing out on lunches together, recesses together, and things like that. So that's just something that I would like us to keep in mind as a board and administration, is we can't just let those type of recognizations to our students that work so hard that they're looking forward to some of this stuff, and then it's non-existent now. But I do thank you for all your hard work and the things that are happening.
Yeah, it's not non-existent though, and that is the great thing. So it's not the same as it was, but we actually just elected our National Junior Honor Society students, and we are doing an induction. So we're planning what that's going to look like. Our student council is in effect. Our PBIS team with student members is in effect. We just started our SAD club back up, and they're doing a social time lunch gathering. It'll be done virtually, but they're planning that right now. We're really excited about it. We did some homecoming events. We had a poster contest. We hung the posters up at the school. You know, so it's not that it's non-existent, and I understand your concern, and I feel concerned too for the way that things have changed and what students have missed out on. That is certainly a very valid concern. So what we're trying to do is, instead of saying these things no longer exist because we're in a remote setting, is we're saying, how do we adapt them for the remote setting so that they're still validating for our kids? And it's been pretty cool. Like, our PBIS team is mailing postcards home to the kids for our students that are doing really well with demonstrating the characteristics of pride, or doing really well with their academic stuff. We're sending those postcards home and doing stuff like that. And so we're trying to adapt things to be fitting to the remote setting so that we don't have to just completely push them out of existence. They are very important, and I agree with you on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Bruce, I was wondering if you've got any data that you can compare this year's success rates to, say, last fall.
So I don't have that offhand, but what I'll do is provide it to Mr. Simmons, and he can present it to the board.
Very good. I as everybody has said in the last hour or so, that we're concerned about failure rates, but I'd like us to be able to have a baseline so that we're not thinking that everything's in dire straits, when in fact we could be doing very well. And it's really a question of just making the adjustments that you and your staff are making right now.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. And because we are living in this data, I feel that that is very important. And so what I'd like to do is be able to provide it to Mr. Simmons, and he can provide that information to the board. And so I will work on that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I know that Mr. Faber would like to talk about how things are going at the high school too.
So we know you're still there, Ms. Bruce, so we can always come back even though we're talking to Mr. Faber. So you just stay online there somewhere, okay?
Sounds good.
Awesome, thanks. Mr. Faber, high school.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I can share some of the, got some similar information, to what Ms. Bruce shared as far as some of the delivery pieces. Let's kind of start with at the high school level. Yes, all the teachers have a Panther portal site. We all utilize the WIP, weekly instructional plan, that are posted on the websites, updated every week. From there, it depends on class to class. The teachers may use different learning tools. In math classes, they're using MathSpace. Individual teachers may use activities like Nearpod, Padlet, Kahoot, a variety of different technology tools depending on the class. So it may look different room to room, but the starting point being everyone with the portal site and every teacher with the weekly instructional plan. Some of the things that we've done as a staff to prepare for this online learning event, or I should say online learning process, is some of our professional learning in August was centered around trauma-informed practice, how to build a community in the virtual learning environment when you don't have the students face-to-face there in front of you. Focus on the social emotional aspects of learning and how do you do that in the virtual environment. That was some time we spent in August, as well as our September staff meeting. We spent some time focusing on adjusting our instruction for the virtual setting, how to provide greater clarity in the online environment, and working in our most recent professional development session, strategies to further engage students in the online environment, how to provide greater clarity, and how to adjust and prioritize the most vital parts of the curriculum. One of the other thing we are doing that is going on this week, we've developed basically a student survey. Each of the teachers will give it to their students within each classroom. So each student's going to fill it out 6 times, but it is specific to each class that the student has in regards to the resources they're getting, the usefulness of the WIP, of if there's a Google Classroom site that you use, the portal site, also any feedback as far as what is helpful in their learning in this virtual setting, and maybe how it could be improved. So we're asking students for some of that feedback and some constructive criticism that the teachers can then turn around and use to improve their instruction. Because we've talked about this from in August, that, hey, how we do this in August may look very different if we're still in this environment in November, because of what we learn and how we adjust. One other thing, as a team, we have made a shift. This is about basically a week here for the students to take advantage of this opportunity. But if students had not been given opportunity to make up missing work, this goes back to the beginning of the school year, August 24th. If they had not yet been given the opportunity to make up work, they would have until Monday, the 19th, a week from today, submit any missing assignments for a maximum score of 80%. As well, if in a given class, if previously it may have been penalized at 50% or not accepted, or say it was accepted and only scored at 50%, would be given a max grade of up to 80% if it was submitted late previously. As we want, because as was mentioned, I think earlier in the comments, once it goes to 0, what's my motivation to do it? And it's a little different in this setting. Students adapting to maintaining and organizing the work. So we have to provide those opportunities. We have a team also at the high school that between myself, Mr. Hutchins, assistant principal, and Miss Avery and Mr. Herman, our counselors, and Miss White, teacher and consultant, that we take a look each week over the last 4 weeks of our student success charts, basically our failure charts, to take a look at who are the students. We kind of separate by parts of the alphabet. We try to reach out to families to see what supports we can provide. We review with the families, the office hours available by the teachers. Sometimes if it's particular to a class, has a student gone to the office hours, explain where those are. Make sure the parents have access to Power School. make sure they're aware of where the whip so that they can follow along and see what's going on in individual students' classes each week. We also have teachers reaching out to students and parents when students are failing. Sometimes counselors are reaching out based upon parent input or staff input. Those might be some more specific social emotional needs, or it might be strictly academic. We have the opportunity for those with little or no internet access available to come in the building from 4 to 8. During that time, we also encourage if students are having difficulty just navigating the system, figuring out to come in and meet with Mrs. Fox during that time. We have also had students come in and families come in during the day when, I don't know how to get around in the system, and to work with them side by side to help them navigate to find their way in the online environment. And encourage them again about the office hours with teachers. We have an aide in the high school who works in some 6 classrooms, assisting students, and also has small group sessions for extra homework help or study sessions when they get ready for a quiz or a test. We also have 2 special education aides who provide support in some of the classrooms, as well as one-on-one and small group help for students. They set up times that they're available as well for those students for the classes they're supporting. We have had some students come on campus to meet with, again, the counselor from Summit Point, like Ms. Bruce mentioned, or even in some cases with our own guidance counselors. Some of that for social emotional issues, some of that for at our level for some of the kids with dual enrollment plans and things as well. We try and go through communications. We're using the robocalls, the text, email for announcements or vital information parents need to know. Use the Pennfield High School Facebook page to duplicate some of those announcements. The daily announcements are posted on the website. Obviously, we've got Power School available for parents. Mr. Hutchins makes a weekly announcement video for students that he shares. It's shared on the teacher whips. We have some teachers that utilize Remind as well as Google Classroom emails. And one thing we have been able to continue in this environment this fall is we've continued our REACH program. And so rather than giving the student a card, which typically is what we did before when they were meeting one of our REACH expectations, teachers are submitting their names to Mr. Hutchins. He's gathering them, and then Thursdays he's doing drawing and contacting the 8 winners, usually 2 9th grade, 2 10th, 2 11th, 2 12th, and let them know, hey, I'm going to be delivering a gift card to you on Friday. And he takes a couple hours on Friday and delivers them to homes to recognize, hey, appreciated you for whatever it was that the teacher nominated you for your positive interaction or your positive behavior in the class setting. And so you're being rewarded for that. And so to try and keep that program going as well, even though we're in a virtual setting. And you mentioned activities, and obviously we had our homecoming last week. We were able to pull together. It was the Wednesday before that we were given the okay that the crowds could grow a little larger. So we were able to get a good chunk of the band there to perform. The dance team, we went through homecoming court ceremonies, similar, not exactly the same, but very similar to what we've done in the past. And got to have 10 court members, 10 male, 10 female court members be a part of that. Part of that was put together in conjunction with Ms. Collins and Mr. Hutchins meeting with student government students to do some planning for that. National Honor Society has had a couple meetings, and one thing they have done, an activity they've started, is to do a weekly, I shouldn't say weekly, they did some letter writing to residents of North Point Woods. They had a plan one week, hey, we'll drop them off. They dropped them off at school, and on Friday, I took them over to North Point Woods so they could be shared with some of the residents there. So we've had some of the activities going. They're making, obviously, adjustments to what kinds of activities they would do based on our setting. But those are some of the things, like I said, going on in the high school. Do you have any questions for me?
I have a couple. This is
Sure.
So I wanted to go talk a little bit about the homework, giving them extra time till the 19th. And I'm understanding the 19th is just because your marking period ends the 23rd, right? Right there.
Correct.
What was the reason for only choosing 80% instead of giving them 100%?
I guess part of it was looking at students who, I guess, have been all along. I've been doing as I'm supposed to. I've got onto this, and I've learned, and I've accepted responsibility, or I've been able to manage the responsibility all along to recognize, hey, they've done something to recognize their efforts.
I understand that in a normal setting. I just feel really strongly that the kids that are not getting their homework in, there's a lot of them that's not within their control, or there was just such a steep learning curve that giving them a chance for 100% just seems like it would be the right thing to do for the first marking period for this environment. But that's just my opinion. And then the follow-up question is, what is the plan for the next marking period?
Are you saying specifically in regards to that, or
The work ethic homework policy.
and that's going to prompt a further discussion on the staff, Art, because I think we've got to come to a kind of a group consensus as far as moving forward. What is going to be, whether it's something of that nature of, okay, to the end of the marking period, up to 80%. Is it, that's a decision that has to be made as far as moving forward. This was, and it's kind of like I said, in reaction, I said to the high school staff in the beginning of August, and I mentioned this earlier, we're going to make adjustments as we go, because we are going to learn some and to make adjustments as we go, because we're going to have to react to how things present themselves and learn and make those adjustments like any learning organization can do and should do.
Yeah. I guess the one thing I would just like to ask the staff to consider for that is from a point of equity. And I understand that you're looking at it from a point of being equitable to give all the kids the same, to not penalize the kids that are doing what they're supposed to do. But just from a point of equity, of giving the kids that need it extra support. And I believe that this is one area that I'm personally not sure 80% is enough. Mm-hmm. But thank you for everything you're doing here.
Thank you.
Tom, I have a question. This is Brandon.
Yes.
Are you able to tell me right now, within any amount of certainty, what percentage of your students are actually failing one or more classes?
I did run the report earlier. Within the 5 to 10%, yes. I can't remember the exact number, but I did run a report, so I try and run it every Monday.
Okay, you said within 5 to 10% of students, yep. Within 5 to 10% of accuracy. I'm sure I understand. 5 to
10% of the number of students.
Are failing one class or more?
No, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. I think no. What I'm saying is, are you asking if I know the number? And you're saying yes, within 5 to 10%, I know the number.
Okay. What is it?
Pardon?
What's the number? That's what I'm asking.
Within okay.
10%.
I want to say it's right around high 30s.
High 30s.
1/3 of our students are failing one or more classes. Is what you're telling me? Right now?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
When you look at the high 30s, Tom, for failure rates, are those in particular areas of study, or are they in one particular area? I repeated myself. And how much are we talking about in terms of percentage? Are we talking 63% or less for their scores?
It 60% or less, and I couldn't tell you as far as the breakdown of particular areas of study, so to speak.
The reason why I bring that up is because the state, when we were looking at areas where students were going to be tested, were particularly concerned about math and reading, and so I'm concerned about, are these our English classes? Are these our math classes that these students are failing, or are they in any kind of trend? Is what I'm concerned about.
I just wanted to say that maybe we should submit these questions to Kevin and then allow our administration to answer to him, and then he could get back with the board on some of those technical questions.
Well, I appreciate all you're doing, Tom, and I think that those are some questions, as our board president has suggested, it'd be good for us to know. I mean, it might be very difficult to do really well in a class that typically has a lab or an art class that doesn't have a place for critiquing the work of the student. Those kinds of things are the things that I look for when I think about patterns, and so like with the junior high school classrooms, are we intervening with students who are really have been historically having difficulty, and maybe it's our historically good students that are the other 60% that you're referring to. And so maybe that's where we need to start looking at additional efforts.
I did have one more question that could be definitely a good follow-up for next week.
Mm-hmm.
It took a while. And that is for both Ms. Bruce and Mr. Faber, how many students per day or per week, or what percentage of student body, I don't care how you do the number, are actually being brought in for assistance, in-person assistance?
In average?
Yeah.
I would have to look at we keep a calendar of all the kids that are scheduled to come in, but it's just a couple of students a day. And it's really based on need, and it's based on, what kind of support plans the teachers are putting in place for them. And then Tom mentioned the technology access in the evenings that occurs at the high school. And I don't know the numbers for that, but I know that there are students, high school and middle school students, that go in the evening so that they can access internet and, they can do some of their work and stuff at that time. And so there are more students going there.
Thank you. I really was during the day, the title kids and the special supports that you were talking about.
Yeah, it's typically just a couple of students a day, and they're spaced out because our building is not set up to have a bunch of students throughout the building. We have the library set up, and it's just a couple of students a day, if that. And it's really just pending whatever their individual needs are.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mr. Faber, Ms.
Yep.
Bruce, thank you. Thank you for sharing out some follow-up from last Wednesday's questions that were about, our failure rates. And I do realize that it is complicated times, not just for our staff, but we have some kids that are in some very, very difficult situations. What I will share with the board, making sure I take a look at where we are on the agenda, because this just might be
We did it.
That's right, we didn't. That's why I said, let me take a look. Thank you. So, yeah, thank you, Mr. Faber, Ms. Bruce, and we'll be getting in contact this week so I can start pulling together some of this data and I can share it with the board members, okay?
All right.
Very good. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you very much. And I do want to just clarify when I said that I think I was misinterpreted about the activities and the social emotional health of our students. I was referencing the end of the year last year, those things that they were just excluded from. And I'm very glad to hear that we are incorporating those types of things into this year.
Good point, good point.
All right, moving, and that was 3.04?
Which is we're still on.
Okay.
Yes.
I was going to take some time for Mr. Corpola and Baxter. When we met at our special meeting last week, it was to save some time this week, but I did want to give each of you an opportunity to express any thoughts that you may or want to share about the preparedness plan.
Excuse me, I couldn't understand the last few words that you spoke, President Fortin.
We met last Monday and had a special meeting for discussion on our preparedness plan and our thoughts and questions as far as that goes. And I just wanted to give you and Mr. Baxter an opportunity, if you so choose, to have some time for that or input.
Sure. What is our infection rate at right now in Calhoun County? Does the Superintendent Simmons?
Yeah, we just met with the health department this morning, the Berry Branch and Calhoun County superintendents, and they shared that it is at a 5.7 is the average, which went from 6.4, which would have meant that there had to be some 4 point somethings in there in order to be at an average of 14 days of 5.7.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay. Kevin, did you have anything else in that section?
I did not have anything else to add on that section.
Did you want to bring up the bond information, the survey?
Oh, that we'll bring it to the next week, on the 19th.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, we're ready for 4.01, comments from the public.
Yep.
I'm really impressed with the way that the high school has been putting the announcements out, and you can see them on a weekly basis. Those kids are older, and those kids actually communicate to parents, at least my high schooler does. I am very worried that I'm not getting any communication from the middle school. They aren't doing announcements last year. Mary would send them out on a weekly basis to an email to everyone. This is my 5th year having a child in the middle school, and not getting any announcements is very worrisome to me. Like, yeah, you can share with the kids, but they're 6th through 8th grade kids, and they don't always communicate the best. So I feel that I would be happier if the middle school would do what the high school is doing and put them on the website or email them like they have for the past 5 years, because I feel like we're maybe missing out on some information. There is a lot of great things going on. My son is in student council, so he's getting that social interaction. And he loves that, but he's a 13-year-old boy, so I don't know what I'm missing out on right now. So I would love to see that. Another thing that was a little bit bothersome to me, as far as conferences were concerned, I was able to schedule for my high schooler. For middle school, I have to meet with the Pride teacher only, and then after I have that conference with just the Pride teacher, then I can make conferences with any other teachers if I feel necessary. I don't understand how my student's Pride teacher knows what's going on in his science class or his math class or his ELA class. So I really didn't like the way that was handled this year, and I think the high school, once again, did a much better job. So I just want to make sure that you guys are very well aware of that. I am a very hands-on parent, as you guys are all very well aware of. And like I said, high school, doing great. Middle school, I'm just really, really nervous about a 13-year-old. And I have one of the older kids in the building, so I can only imagine what those 6th grade parents who came from the elementary setting are going through, or the 7th grade parents are going through. So just wanted to make sure you guys are aware. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move forward to 5.01, comments from the superintendent.
Yeah, I would just share that we do have parent-teacher conferences that will continue. So we have another session of parent-teacher conferences coming up. And just as a reminder that we want to make sure that we are understanding, focused, that those things that even I know each of the building principals are working on is there were things that occurred pre-COVID, and now we're talking about COVID. You cannot compare grades and scores for pre-COVID to COVID. 90% of the districts around us have seen an increase in failures. Now, I'm not saying failures are okay, because they are not. But realistically, we need to start making sure that we're looking at, I'm taking the first 5 weeks and looking at the amount of failures, and I am comparing them to the second 5 weeks and comparing, did they go down? Are we doing some things differently? And I've had conversations with some of the building principals and the things that they're trying to do and what they're telling me teachers are trying to do. We know these are difficult times. I can't make excuses. I'm not looking to make excuses. But I am looking for is everyone having an understanding that everything is not going to be the same. And we had the same thing occur with the building principals who've spoken today, middle school and high school. They are trying to take everything that we've had pre-COVID and trying to do it virtually so that kids still have that opportunity, but it looks different. Until we're able to bring all kids back safely, because that's what we want. We want all of our kids back. And when that call is made, we will be prepared for accepting students. Until we get there and we get to that point, if everybody would just understand that we're still a work in progress. We're not going to be perfect at it. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to have to adjust, modify, and we're going to have to do some things so that we can meet kids' needs where they are. And so one of the board members, and this had to be at least 3 months ago, said, really? We can do better. And that is why we're trying to do these small things when it comes to social emotional learning, when it comes to failures, when it comes to struggling, when it comes to athletics, when it comes to every corner of this district. We're going to continue to work to try to make what works best in the situation that we're in for every child. We're not saying, oh, that 20%, we're just, they're going to always, no, we're going to do what we can to reach that 20% also. And yes, we have gifted and talented students. Their parents are asking for more work, where we have teachers that are going, yeah, it might be more work, but we're going to try to give them the extra work because, as was mentioned last Wednesday, well, that's not enough for my child. 1 hour for the whole week? And the teacher's going, yeah, but I need to grade it. So now the teacher's going back to say, maybe there's some reading or some extra work that they can do that's going to help them excel academically. So I just wanted to make sure to share that piece, that the work continues, and we look forward to continuing our work and communication is a partnership with our parents and our community so that we can continue to move forward. So, thank you.
Thank you. 5.02, September through in law notes. I just wanted to mention to the board that that is in board docs, and so you can take a look at it there. 6.01, comments from the board. Can you go first?
I just had a couple things. First of all, I appreciate what you just said about all the different things that you and your staff are trying, and I want to make sure that we acknowledge that. And for me, asking difficult questions or asking pointed questions are just a way to educate myself, so hopefully people aren't taking that as criticism. I just want to make that point. As a school board member, I have to ask a lot of questions so I feel comfortable making decisions. So, having said that, if the semester ends on the 23rd, or the marking period, is that correct?
Right, marking period, the 9 weeks.
So, if I'm trying to understand the timeline, if the board decides to address going back into the classroom, if that comes up next week at the regular board meeting, that gives you 1 week if we go back at the beginning of the marking period. My question is, whenever the board decides to make that action item, how much time do you need? How much lead time do you need?
Well, I know because we're in the middle of a few things that we would have to change, that it'll take 2 weeks minimum.
Okay.
2 weeks minimum, and that's making sure not because personnel being in place is not going to be. It's going to be the schedules for the kids,
right?
Which is why I put out the survey, making sure that we knew which parents wanted their kids to be virtual, which ones they wanted to be with it in person, because that would allow us to get those schedules together. And when I say those schedules, there are parents who would say they want their kids virtual compared to those that would want them to be in person. Could cause the class to have 28 in one class and only 5 in another. Therefore,
it's going to be awkward.
It would be, so we'd have to make that adjustment. So yeah, it would be one, getting that information. So it would be 2 weeks minimum.
Okay. Then is there anything, there's, as far as when we had that vote way back in August, we said, let's give it 9 weeks and look at the marking period, but there's nothing particularly critical about that 9 week point of going back into the classroom or not, is there?
No.
Okay.
It is not.
That was my only question on that. And then the only other comment I have is congratulations to Trevor on your little baby boy.
Yes. We will get that message to Trevor.
Yeah, I noticed he wasn't online. I wonder why.
Any other board members, board comments?
Let me start by saying those that were involved in the homecoming and the entire way that was done, for all the hard work you put in, it was really, given the times we're facing, so well done. For those that could have that one experience, I didn't see a whole lot of difference from what I've seen in past years. There were some nuances, but it was certainly taken into account, the students, the band. It was just very well done during difficult times. I just want to thank all of you that put in the effort to do that. Great job all around. One of the earlier callers from the public made a comment about in classroom. He said that this is not a decision that the board has a right to make. What occurred to me, in no disrespect to that caller, is that we disregarded from the very beginning of this with our 4-3 vote, the majority of the parents that wanted us to at least attempt a hybrid model. We ignored them from the very beginning after we took a survey. And based on the board before you and the way this system works, we proceeded forward with what we did. And that was the way our design, like a jury verdict, is set up. But I want to state up front, we did ignore the wishes of the parents. And, you know, when you look at, as somebody said, one of my colleagues said, we need a baseline to determine if kids are failing. I disagree with that. I think the baseline is pretty simple. 3 kids go into a classroom right now. Actually, they go into their basement, their living room, dining room table, at home. And one of them is failing. 1 out of 3 of our Pennfield students, 6 through 12, is failing. That's not acceptable. I don't think anybody here would agree that it is. But I also agree that we're going to make mistakes. I agree with the superintendent on that. The thing that's getting lost in this is there are real consequences to what's happening right now with our kids. If you're failing right now, and we're getting this late along in the marking period, you very well could flunk the class. Maybe 2, maybe 3. From my experience in 30 years in criminal justice, kids that have flunked classes sometimes say, that's it, I don't care. And then that carries over into the next semester. And the next thing you know, they just don't care about school anymore, when actually at one point in time, they might have been a bright student, but because of their parents' divorce and abuse and some other things that happened in their life, they then become a different person, and it snowballs. But we don't, apparently, based on the numbers I'm hearing, have any idea what we're doing with that lower third to fix it. I'm not saying we're not trying. I'm saying we're failing. We're failing them because we didn't fail a third of those kids before COVID. So we need to do something different. So I've been criticized, particularly by the board president of the Teachers Association, with using the word risk benefit. Tell me what else I should use right now. 1/3 of our kids is failing. 1/3. Tell me what the risk benefit is to bringing those kids back in a hybrid model. And just seeing if we can do something better. Because we're not doing it now. Not one bit.
Brandon? Any other board comments? Okay. Well, we have a big week to be thinking about our community and our students. Not that they haven't been constantly on our mind through all of this. And with that being said, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Yeah.